Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Marco Chacin, and today I'd like to tell you about what inspired me to become a roboticist, and while I take you on a visual journey through robotics evolution. First, about myself, um, I'm calling from the UK, but I'm originally from Venezuela and South America. I'm 46 years old, and I'm a father of four. I must say that I've had a very interesting journey through robotics, one that's taken me around the world. Today, I work for Airbus as head of Actuators and Effectors for the Central Robotics Development team. However, my journey in robotics truly started when I was a very young boy. I had a fascination for Japanese animation shows, specifically the ones with mechas. For those who haven't heard the term, mecha is a Japanese word that refers to giant robots, typically piloted and depicted as huge humanoid walking machines that are featured in anime and manga. Um, these robots have captured people's imagination for decades. Personally, I fondly remember Astro Boy. Perhaps some of you in the audience will have seen this in its humanoid protagonist, who was a key influence in the development of giant robot genre. However, the first anime with giant mecha that depicted a pilot, its protagonist piloting the robot within the cockpit, was Messenger Z. Um, Messenger was introduced in the 70s, and it has inspired and popularized the idea in with many other series of animes and mangas, such as Gundam, which I'm pretty sure some of you who are geeks like me would know. Um, in this series specifically, robots were used as tools for human advancement, and the authors of this try to they attempted realism with the robot design and the weaponry. So the robot will run out of energy or run out of ammo. Even the robot will start malfunctioning. These themes in mecha anime were also filled with heroic robots like Steel Jeek and futuristic visions like Grandizer. Some of them were also shown here and in Europe, in the West countries over years. These robots have popularized the concept of powerful human-controlled robots, inspiring literally generations of engineers and innovators to pursue advancements in real-world robotics by blending imagination with technical possibilities. The fictional robots in anime also are credited typically with a widespread of use of industrial robots in manufacturing. This basically cemented Japan's role as a global leader in robotics development and automation back in the 70s and even 80s. It certainly inspired researchers from Honda, who created early concept of what a companion robot would look like and how it should behave. Things like it's in Japanese, so it won't be possible to read it. But things like walking at the same speed of a person, or understanding natural languages, orders through natural language, or being able to carry objects, or walking on 2 feet, going up and down stairs. These are still challenges that roboticists are working on around the world. And some of these also became requirements for the development of ASIMO, which is also another influential robot over the last 20 to 30 years. And at the same time, new factors were created and robots introduced to aid manufacturing, many with the same challenges that we have today, like precision, speed, reliability, and safety. When Kawasaki introduced the first industrial robot, the Unimate, in 69, the automotive industry was the only one that was willing to utilize robotic automation. During this time, Japan had a period of economic growth, but labor shortages became a major social issue, and a lot of people from rural areas came to the city looking for work. But even then, that was not enough to fully alleviate the issues that businesses were experiencing due to the lack of labor. Um, and Following that, Japan had a sharp rise in car sales thanks to the rapid effect of rapid motorization. Basically, for the first time in history for that country, it became commonplace for households to have a car for personal use. So automotive manufacturers had to find a way and that way was automation to increase their throughput through their production lines and keep up with the booming demand. Fast forward 50 years since the birth of industrial robots. And from the beginning, as I said, the automotive industry has served as a catalyst for adoption. The overwhelming success of robots in industry has shown that how beneficial robots can be for other industries as well. Nowadays, there are vastly different types of industries, and they use different robot arms for electronics, food and beverage, medical work, even metal fabrication, etc. Both performing complex and simple tasks, on a day-to-day basis. This is the latest data from the International Federation of Robots, and it shows that at the moment with just over 4 million robots in operation around the world. And this is steadily increasing. We've seen an increase over the last few years. So just so you should have some context there, it took FANUC about 40 years to sell the first 500,000 units, and they achieved this milestone about in 2017. And then it took another just 6 years to get to 1 million units. So you can see there that the exponential growth at the rate that things are actually improving over the last few years. In 2016, I took this screenshot of an article in the Fortune magazine, and that it explained how the business of robots is about to, at the time was about to boom. It was going to get significantly bigger. To me, though, there was an important quote in this, or prediction, let's call it, in this article. It was the following. It stated that the total spend on robot services, business consulting, education, and training will eventually eclipse the robots, the sales of the robots themselves. Basically, we're saying that it's going to generate more revenue or more profit than the actual hardware sales. This meant that the robots are now getting close to reach the point of which they become a commodity. And come to think about it, I can only think of another device that had a similar business model. And obviously there's more now, but the one that came to mind immediately was the smartphones. So you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Today, Apple, which is the biggest smartphone manufacturer in the world, generates about 250 to 400 billion dollars in iPhone sales every single year. However, the Apple Store ecosystem generates 1.1 trillion dollars in a year, according to the figures from 2022. Surely that number has become bigger over the last couple of years. So you can see here that we're getting to a point in which the applications are exactly what's driving the development in the growth in this market. The global market itself is expected for robots is expected to reach about 40 billion this year, potentially doubling by 2030. However, the robots themselves are only a tiny fraction of the overall market. Typically, the robot hardware accounts for 10%, sometimes even less, of the cost of the total system, whereas the development, the engineering, the integration of advanced applications, like you see on your screen, can be as high as 30 or 40%. Clearly, there's still a lot of room to grow. However, when it comes to challenges in aerospace applications, even though we've seen a lot of advancements in other areas, aerospace manufacturing still remains as a challenge for the current generation of robots. And the challenge is due to the accuracy, reliability, and repeatability that is necessary. In the process of creating the production lines for assembly, for aircraft assembly, inspection and testing is still an area of research and development. It is indeed very difficult to have these robots do the work that today humans are doing on a day-to-day basis. We in Airbus have been working closely with suppliers and manufacturers in order to create the robots that are most appropriate for our applications. Reason being, as you're probably aware, these robots are mainly driven by the automotive requirements. And so we have actually gotten involved very closely with some of these suppliers in order to design and improve robots that would suit our needs. Although I don't want to go too deep into this topic. My colleague Damian Van Dam will also present tomorrow, and this is likely to be part of his presentation too. So I don't want to spoil much of his own work. But yeah, in reality, this is what is actually happening. We're trying to take our own destiny on our hands and make sure that we can actually produce the best systems possible for what we want to do in the future. Right. So now we got to the point of the presentation in which I'm going to try to look ahead, see what's the situation today, and I will dare to contribute with a prediction here. First, I do believe that we are realizing the anime vision, what I call the anime vision. Effectively, today's robots are making science fiction reality. There's absolutely no question about that. And as we've seen, this trend is accelerating quite significantly. And I see that we might be forced to go even faster that we're at the pace we're going today. Well, you might ask, why is that the case? Well, today we're running a GDP, a global GDP of about $100 trillion. It's a massive amount. The important point here is that labor, specifically human labor, contributes to 50% of that GDP. And as we've already seen, we're now experiencing labor shortages, and labor rates are going up. So traditionally manufacturing countries that have based their entire economy on these labor rates will be the first one to be in trouble, to face the problems. Although I think that the rest of the world is obviously not too far behind that sort of situation. We will also have to deal with another couple of mega trends. One of them is the aging population. In many developed countries, the population is turning, basically old, over 60. Places like Japan, for example, more than 30 to 40% of the population is already over 60. And because the population is not growing, it's very difficult to get the labor force to actually maintain that sort of population overhead. And also the other thing we're seeing at is the demographic inversion, people moving from the rural areas into the city. This will create problems with food and transportation, and clearly we will need help in the future. So in order to alleviate or try to alleviate these problems, I see two specific areas that are coming online right now. The first is the reemergence of humanoids. I say reemergence because this already happened once in the early 2000s. I will admit that humanoids are a very, let's call it quote unquote, sexy area of robotics. Today, this sort of thing is back, and the advancements in humanoid technology cannot be overstated. The basic idea that would be to put a quote unquote robotic person on doing tasks that are today not streamlined enough to happen without a person, to a human person. And I'm pretty sure there will be a marketplace for that over some interval of time. But I do also see that improvements in safety, controls, and sensor fusion will be necessary to assist humans in most cases. And while I do see potential, I must point out that some people are predicting that by 2040, there could be somewhere between 1 to 10 billion robots, humanoid robots on the planet. And although that might sound exciting, that would also mean that there be as many robots as people, actual humans. So I believe that these predictions may be a little bit optimistic. For context, I don't think we ever manufacture anything to that rate. Apple, once again, to the same example, has produced 2.3 billion phones since the iPhone was introduced in 2007. So by comparison, it will be very difficult to get to the same kind of numbers in just a handful of years. And so I don't believe that 1 billion human robots will be feasible, but I do think that we could potentially have millions of robots working with us over the next few years. And then the second trend is obviously artificial intelligence. This probably is one of the most important ones. Until recently, there was a divergence between the robots that can do interesting or physical work and the robots that are intelligent. The real smart robots were your Alexas, your Siris, your Google Homes of the world. And with new advancements like ChatGPT, for example, I do envision a future with embodied AI robots or embodied artificial intelligence, which is a type of AI that allows intelligent systems to interact and learn from the physical environment. I must say that I've never seen a technology evolve so quickly since the introduction of ChatGPT and other large language models. We've seen a lot of growth and also a lot of technological advancement. And I think this is an area that will help us significantly over the next few years. I think this will be a real breakthrough, and I believe that it's just a matter of time. I don't know. It's just a matter of when, know whether it's going to happen or not. So my key takeaways and looking ahead. Today we briefly discuss how anime has influenced robotic engineers like myself specifically, and innovation in the field. We also saw some of the ongoing challenges of aerospace segment, and although we didn't go too deep into that, it was my intention to do something a little bit, perhaps a little bit more fun, and kind of introduce you to this line of thinking. Looking ahead, I do think that the future of robots, although it's still evolving, is still inspired by both fiction and technological advancement. And I for one cannot wait to see what robots have for us just around the corner. Thank you very much.